Evening, wrong-uns. Let me just get my feet under the table for a change. As you can see from the varying light cascading through the window, it's a little later this Wednesday. Tim, that's very funny. That is very funny. So evening one and all. Evening, you wrong-uns. Norman Taylor, evening. The Saints number one. Hello, you wrong one. The uninvited guest, hello, Adrian. Paul Bain, oh, are we nearly there yet? Are we nearly there? Stephen Nash, good to thank you. Hi, Adrian. Melanie Cook, hi, Adrian. Tim Miles, no Battenberg cake for me, thank you. That's proper made me chuckle. We'll just allow everybody to get their feet under the table as is customary with the live. If you can hit the what's called the thummy thing, if you can hit the likes, it would help greatly. If you want to share the lives or any of my videos, please do so, and make sure that you're subscribed. It's been a evening, Adrian. How's it going? Thank you, Bouncy Castles. Tucker 69, evening all. Paulie Galtieri. Now then, how's about that then? Goodness gracious. You'll see. And Alex in Stockton. Alex in Stockton, after evening all. Tina Silver, hello there. First live with you. Oh, hi, Tina. Thank you very much for that. Do appreciate it. And Patricia Angeles, evening, Patricia. And BRT246, eluf. Pwywch tad nawr te, BRT246. Wales is very much in the news at the moment. He says, yes, I know. Or just to get you on side, BRT246, Tushleen Bob Sice. Mr. John Up, good evening, Adrian, and to all in YouTube land, BRT, just keep it between me and you. And Tic Tac, oi, oi, peeps, what have I clicked on? Oh, an ever descending rabbit hole. So this is live number 18. Where are we? What time have we got? Oh, we'll give them a couple of more minutes, because there's lots to talk about. And as they say a week is a long time in politics. You bet your sweet Bibby. It's even. I mean, what we're doing with 5 days in, 6 days in, with the press. I mean, I've Sarah James. Hi, Adrian. First live for me. Evening, Sarah. Thank you for making it. And a couple of others. Oh, yeah. All right. We've got it. DC says there's a new board game this Christmas. It's called Guess Huw. When I'm calling, I can't sing. That's a radio presenter. Can't sing. I'm not going to attempt to. J Trades, Adrian, my wife finds you quite attractive and I'm feeling conflicted. Me too, J Trades. Me too. But I wanted to say that this week has been incredible with what's been going on. Is it him? Is it not him? Presenters coming out going, it ain't me. But because I've done varying videos on yes, exactly. Alex in Stockton, BBC now playing the mental health card for Mr. X, presenter X. But I'm watching all the reportage. I'm watching the media. And it's interesting how the BBC, it's like gunslingers. The Sun and the BBC, a pair of gunslingers. They're having a shootout in town. And it was who was going to blink first. And neither of them blinked. It was the wife. It was a good woman that sorted this mess out. She's just come out and went, right, enough. We're taking you to hospital. And because I'm taking you to hospital, you lot can back off and I'll deal with this. And you can respect the privacy of my family, you. So what I want to do is just say welcome to everyone. Welcome to the live. Welcome to first timers, which there are a few. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And I'm going to tell you that the next live is Sunday. Sunday, 16th of July at 8 o'clock. It appears from the numbers that 8 o'clock is, obviously you're either getting the kids to bed or the hubby to bed, or if he's been down the pub and a bit squiffy and you've had a bite to eat and now you can sort of relax. And you don't really need to watch this. I mean, you can listen and do other things if you are at home, or if you're out driving, or anything. You don't necessarily have to watch this. But what I am going to do is, the live that I was going to do has completely changed in the last hour 90 minutes or so. Huw. Oh, was it? Huw, Barney McGrew, Cuthbert, Dibble and Grubb. There you go. That's a talent, Huw. So I've changed the live completely. So what I'm going to do is, a lot of people are either chucking stones at the Sun, defending the BBC. I'm not quite sure how they can do that. But I'm going to give you some facts tonight. I'm going to give you some insight that absolutely nobody else has given you. I'm going to give you some stories about some pervert. And you'll notice this is not monetized, because the lives are really the only place that I can speak freely about my own personal experiences. 45 years in media, BBC and commercial radio, speech radio, music radio, Capital Group, LBC. Been a bit of a tart in my time, but the lives are really where I can speak freely. So now that we've got and getting most folk ready and chilled, and Carl Appleton. So was this the story, or just the Sun talking complete bollocks again? And Theo Bovril said, at least you gave us the link to find out it was Huw Edwards. 3 hours before the main media reported it. I know. Well, I want you to walk through this with me, because I can jump about all over the place, and comment away if you will, because I'll read them all. Oh, Adi, how are you doing, big lad? Good to see you there. We must catch up. There is on the channel, there's an email. Get in touch, big lad. It's been a while. So I want to walk through this in a sort of linear direction, so that you get understanding of a lot of the stuff that the BBC and the mainstream media haven't touched. Because I've said to you, I believe that this has been a straight shootout between the BBC. And the BBC went on the attack yesterday. All the Sun, pointing fingers at the Sun. And all the Sun did was say, this is about parents trying to do the right thing by their child. And so let's do it, so I don't get distracted by all of your comments. But please comment freely. I will read them afterwards. And those that are new to the channel or new to the live, I do interact with the comments. I'm going to interact with some of your comments a little bit later, because there's a lot of very, very, very intelligent people that watch this channel, and I will get to your comments and respond to them for you. Not many people do it on YouTube. I think I might be the only one. But the next live, put it in your diary. It's this coming Sunday at 8 o'clock. We will get to 8 o'clock. Please abide by the YouTube community guidelines. You're wrong uns. So let's just start where we need to. Let's just get the what so, where we are with everything. Huw Edwards has been named by his wife, so you can freely comment in the comments. 2 people are suing AB Andy. Who's it? Rich, who's AB Andy? Don't know. Now, there were some pre-written press releases released a couple of minutes before 6 o'clock tonight. Now, those that are regulars and the first-timers, I am a cynical old tart. I know the moves like Jagger that the mainstream media pull. And the fact that it was 6 o'clock when they released some of these statements. And I thought to myself, hang on a second. 6 o'clock. Well, that's a bit convenient. So my first thought was, what's the Sun got tomorrow that they're going to publish? What is it? I mean, there'll be some very busy feet in the Sun tonight. Because ordinarily the Sun is published, you get the first editions early doors, and then it's sent out via trains around the rest of the UK, and then the later editions come in. A bit like I worked for Mohammed Al Fayed when Diana was murdered, and I got the first editions when we were called straight into the radio station on the Sunday morning, and I got the first editions, so I can tell you stuff that you won't even know, because the later editions all the stories that were on the front page were all taken off by, obviously, the crash and Diana's sad passing. Oh, interesting. Light sky. The big question is Huw a nonce or a perv? Or both? So I'm going to read you the press releases that were issued just before the 6 o'clock bulletin, and I do believe they were prepared much earlier. The BBC changed its game 2 days ago because they were on the back foot. They didn't know what they were doing, and the BBC's in brand new territory. They've never really dealt with anything like this, including Savile. So let's go with the police first. The police detectives from the Met Specialist Crime Command have now concluded their assessment and have determined that there is no information to indicate that a criminal offence has been committed. No criminality. So they're saying that the BBC can continue with its investigation. And here's a bit more from the Met Police's Specialist Crime Command, who say they have now concluded their assessment, determined that a criminal offence, that there is no information to indicate that a criminal offence has been committed. In reaching this decision, the Met have spoken to a number of parties, including the BBC and the alleged complainant and the alleged complainant's family, both via another police force. So the rumour I heard the other day, this was, where are we? Monday. I heard that on Monday, the Met had been in touch with South Wales Police, the Heddlu. So why would they be in touch with the South Wales Police? It was another indicator. Huw Edwards has got a home in Cardiff, so I'm told. The Met say that they were aware of media reporting of further allegations against the same individual. No specific details or information about these allegations have been passed to us, and therefore there is no police action at this time, the statement adds. Should evidence of criminality or safeguarding issues be identified at any point, we would expect matters to be referred to the relevant police force, the Met says. So then that's kind of the Met done and dusted. No criminality, nothing going forward, nothing that they're aware of, and if there's any criminality or safeguarding issues, then the local force will deal with it, rather than the Met. And then the BBC released its own statement following the Met, saying there's no evidence of a criminal offence. We have seen the statement from the police confirming they have completed their assessment and are not taking further action. We're grateful to them for completing this work at speed. The police has previously asked us to pause our fact-finding investigations, and we will now move forward with that work. This is just before 6 o'clock. They knew what was going on. Unless, obviously, they're a bunch of clowns. Now, the BBC say they were going to now move forward with that work, ensuring due process and a thorough assessment of the facts whilst continuing to be mindful of our duty of care to all involved. So why wasn't it the BBC saying that Huw was going to hospital rather than his wife? Okay, breaking news. The Sun says it has no plans to publish further allegations about Huw Edwards and will cooperate. That's as much as I can see on my phone. So the Sun has decided it has no plans to publish further allegations about Huw Edwards. So Huw's wife, Vicky, named Huw as the presenter in the scandal. So Huw Edwards was named as presenter, as the BBC presenter, by his wife, Vicky. She named him as the BBC presenter facing allegations over payments for sexually explicit images in a statement issued on his behalf. Now, I'll give you sort of the abridged version and then I'll give you the longer version. In Vicky's statement, she said her husband, Huw Edwards, was suffering from serious mental health issues and is now receiving inpatient hospital care where he will stay for the foreseeable future, and she asked for privacy for her family. Now, I'm going to give you that statement in full, and I do think that the Sun's breaking news that they're not going to publish any further allegations about Huw Edwards is the right move. It's the right thing. And as we go through this hour and a bit, we'll kind of get to an understanding. Jerona Jackson, that's because he was caught Yeah, we'll get to that. So here's Vicky Flint's statement on behalf of her husband. It was given to the PA news agency in full. In light of the recent reporting regarding the BBC presenter, I am making this statement on behalf of my husband, Huw Edwards, after what have been 5 extremely difficult days for our family. I am doing this primarily out of concern for his mental well-being and to protect our children. Huw is suffering from serious mental health issues. As is well documented, he has been treated for severe depression in recent years. The events of the last few days have greatly worsened matters. He has suffered another serious episode and is now receiving inpatient hospital care where he'll stay for the foreseeable future. Once well enough to do so, he intends to respond to the stories that have been published. To be clear, Huw was first told that there were allegations being made against him last Thursday. In the circumstances and given Huw's condition, I would like to ask that the privacy of my family and everyone else caught up in these upsetting events is respected. I know that Huw is deeply sorry that so many colleagues have been impacted by the recent media speculation, and we hope this statement will bring that to an end. 2 things. Has he been sectioned? Because if he's been sectioned, he is a threat to either himself or to others. And if he's not been sectioned, did he go voluntarily? Oh, I wonder. Playing the mental health card. Was it voluntary? I'm not going to pick Vicky's statement apart, but I will say this. Not one mention of the victims. Not one. Me. Sounds like a bloody opera singer warming up. No. Let's have compassion for the victims. Vicky. It's not about Huw. It's about the kids he's damaged. One of them has a crack cocaine habit because of your husband. So, I'm going to go into details of the scandal. Let me just get rid of this. I'm going to go into the details of the scandal because there are lots. And if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them. Not one mention of will he protest his innocence. Thank you, Norman. Exactly. But that's 2023. That's modern mainstream media. Everybody's a victim. And when somebody gets caught, they're the victim, not the victims. So let's get into the detail. And there were some people that commented saying, oh, so they can't be that serious. They didn't tell anybody they went straight to the son, as in the stepdad and the mum. No, they didn't. No. Fact. Number 1, they went straight to the police. When they wanted this to stop, they went to the police. We are talking about, I believe, a story of the ages. Society is awash with the D word. Recreational, we'll call it, to kind of get away from the algorithm. So, society is awash with recreational. Some say, oh, it's just, it's just a funny cigarette. And the 35 grand that has allegedly been deposited from Huw Edwards' bank accounts into a victim's bank account from 17-year-old has led to a downward spiral into really heavy gear. So, what about the victims? Surely he was aware enough and intelligent enough. He's got a PhD, for goodness sake. He would know that the money he was handing over was not going to be great. But did he care? He went to another victim. He went to another victim's. And what about breaking lockdown? We'll get to this. So the mum and dad approached the police in April. And the police said, no criminality. None. So the mum and dad are stuck between a rock and a hard place. They've done the right thing by their child. They're trying to get their child off gear, off the recreational stuff. They go to the police. And what do the Rozzers do? No criminality. Nothing to do with us, mate. So that was in April. They've then gone to the BBC May 18th. They've gone to a BBC building. They've literally walked into a BBC building and said, we need help, we need support. We want him to stop sending the money. This is a victim, not the guy that's gone to hospital. Victim. So, May 19th, they contact, was it Audience Support Unit or something or other deep in the bowels of the BBC. And from May 19th until June the 6th, the BBC made one call which didn't connect and one email which wasn't responded to. And what did they do? Nix, nada, nout, absolutely naff all. Until the Sun knocks on the door and goes, hello lads, we've got a story. Care to comment? And then the brown stuff hits the fan. Loads of it. To the point where the top of the food chain in the BBC's having to come out and go, oh, sorry lads, can I have a strong coffee? So there was nothing between the 6th of June and the 6th of July when the Sun knocked on their door. So, this grubby, sordid, creepy little life of Huw Edwards. Let's take a look at it. He broke lockdown rules. Now, you and I know people that lost their life. You and I know people that were damaged by what went on in the last 3 years, whether it was physically or mentally. You and I know that we were told, you will do this. Otherwise, you'll get arrested. Otherwise, you'll get a massive fine. And there were people who were caught and had to fine, unless you Rita Ora, of course, in which case you have your 30th birthday party and then leg it to Australia while the heat dies down, and then you come back in your bikini all over the press. Hello, Rita. How are you? We haven't forgotten, Rita. 30th birthday party during lockdown, when some of us couldn't even get to our family, when some of us couldn't get it to our old ones in care homes, when some of us were really suffering. Not we couldn't get a drink at the bar. Rita Ora, I wouldn't pee on her if she was on fire. So I believe that this breach of lockdown rules needs to be investigated. If he's broken the rules, he needs to be done for it. And appropriately and proportionately. Not, I'm suffering with my mental health. Look, I get that. I get that. A lot of people are struggling because they were locked up for 3 years. Look at our kids, man. Our kids, they couldn't see their mates at school. Their schooling was affected. Their mental health's been affected. And this boy is running around trying to meet up with other blokes. He was using a dating site to meet these others. I believe there's a tsunami of brown stuff coming with other people coming out of the woodwork going, oh yeah, he did the same to me. So he goes round to a complete and utter stranger's flat and gives him 200 quid. Now, call me a man of the world, but normally if you go to visit somebody and drop 200 quid on the table, we know what that's for. It wasn't for a cup of tea and a bun. So, Huw Edwards, this was today, Jeremy Vine, on telly, said about Huw Edwards, he's extremely angry and wants to play it long. That was Jeremy Vine on Channel 5 this morning. Now, I believe that Jeremy was, because the BBC was in such a panshite that the BBC didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to manage this. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to react. It was only part of yesterday and today that they were really on the attack with the Sun. And I believed that the story was being managed, all of it. Every single, I watched today where the story changed from being about BBC presenter X and it became about what Jeremy Vine said. It's clever. It's a clever technique. It distracts you away from the main story. Oh yeah, Jeremy said this and Jeremy said that. And then the story becomes about what Jeremy said on Channel 5 today. It's clever. Don't ever take what you're being given. So I believed it was a straight Gunslinger shootout between the BBC and the Sun. So the BBC didn't want to name the presenter. And we did a poll. I think I've got yes. So we did a poll yesterday. I'll pause for a second. We did a poll yesterday. And I said Jeremy Vine had tweeted today, yesterday to say that he thinks the BBC presenter involved in the scandal should come forward publicly. Who should name the BBC first? Now, there were over 830 votes. The Sun newspaper got 7% of the votes. Everyone else on social media got 7% of the votes. BBC got 19% of the votes. But what everybody, the majority, 2/3 of the people that voted in this poll wanted the BBC presenter himself to out himself and do the right thing. Because remember, at the beginning of this live, I told you that the parents were trying to do the right thing by their child. They were trying to get the child support and guidance, trying to do the right thing by their child. And this guy is lobbing money at them and then calls them twice last week. What you done? Call your mother off. No. So it's the same technique used in politics. Overload the viewer, the consumer, me and you, with so much information, you just go, oh, shut up, and you switch it off. I mean, how can you tell when a politician's lying? Their lips move. How can you tell when a politician's speaking? You can hear a whining in your ear. So we just kind of this, schoolboy Sunak. Has he taken his GCSEs yet? He's only cockeyed. They think we're thick. So they bombard you with information, and I'm sure you haven't had a chance because you've been living life. You've been working, life, partner, relationships, family, stuff. Life's full of stuff. You've been dealing with all that, and in the meanwhile, you haven't quite caught up with exactly what's been going on. As best as you have tried, but today, the Beeb start to obscure it and overload you with information. And I was asking myself today, what was the Sun saving for the weekend? Because I believe the Sun had a big story. What were they saving? Who do you think is the culprit in all this? Is there a baddie in this? Is there a goodie? Goody, yum, yum. Or is it the culprit, the BBC? I've already told you. The family went to the BBC. They went to the police first to see what they could do about what their child was doing. And this star, because remember, when Schofield was tried by media, it was, he's abused his position. Well, there's another thing you can lob at Huw Edwards. He abused his position by $5,000. When was the last time you did anything like a one-off for $5,000? When? Unless you're Andrew Tate, you've got to be, of course. So let me go through, and I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about, in my view, a political pervert. So there were texts from the presenter, Huw Edwards, to another young person. And I quote, Huw wanted to meet this guy. And he said to him in the text, I think tomorrow is tricky. I'm nervous about the tier 3 restrictions. And this young person said, I thought you didn't want to come because of restrictions. And Huw Edwards said, well, I shouldn't, but I really want to. So remember when you're old, your grandparents or a member of your family or your partner, your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter was in a hospital or a care home and you couldn't go and hug them. You couldn't be there for them, with them, at them, because of the restrictions in hospitals, because of the restrictions that the government laid down and told you and me we could not do that. Except Huw Edwards. He got public transport out of London to somewhere else. Didn't say where, but he got public transport out of town, out of Dodge. Was desperate for a cup of tea and a bun. Or buns. And he has 200 quid, mate. I know what they call those kind of people that do stuff for money. Workers. So the lockdown rules at the time was stay at home. Schools are closed. I mean, look at the deterioration of the school children, the young uns, the little uns. They just wanted to be with their pals, and they couldn't. They were stuck at home. I mean, there's only so much TV and games and stuff you can play at home before you get cabin fever. And yet this guy, the arbiter of what is right and what is good about Britain, is off in another guy's house. Exercise and socialising was okay within your own household, or they called it a bubble at the time, didn't they? Communal workshop and small weddings were allowed. So bride and groom and the vicar, that's it. Police had powers to arrest or fine those who broke the rules, and that wasn't relaxed until July 2021, which is quite a while after young Huw wanted to go and meet his peccadillo. Now, there is I know there's in the media, there's some hectoring clowns, but it seems that he who shouts loudest. So I saw this thing with Harvey Proctor. Now, if you're old enough, you might remember this, but I'm going to read it because I have to be careful legally. Nuts and bolts. Do you mind if I read that out? This is a rare exception where the messenger, the BBC, should rightfully be executed. I'm with you. Withdraw the funding, all of it, make them commercial, and then send them out into the world and say, there you go. But they're a propaganda arm of the government, certainly worldwide. Imagine, it's Brexit, Jim, but not as we know it. God, the BBC was so upset with Brexit. Anyway, let's get back to Harvey Proctor, because I want to tell you a couple of stories. Harvey Proctor was an MP, Tory MP, and he came out of he's come out of the woodwork today. He's having a go. He's out, leave Huw Edwards alone, leave the BBC presenter alone. No, don't be talking about him, don't be saying anything. Harvey, mate, shut up. Harvey Proctor, in June 1986, the People newspaper published claims that Harvey had taken part in sexual relationships with male prostitutes aged between 17 and 21 in his London flat in exchange for money, and took indecent photos of them with a Polaroid camera. Isn't that right, Harvey? Mate. The age of consent for same-sex relationships at the time was 21 in 1986, although 16 for opposite-sex relationships. No specific legislation existed at the time regarding minimum ages for prostitution, and the following year, I think was it table tennis bats? The following year, Proctor was charged with gross indecency and resigned his post. He was succeeded by Theresa Gorman at the next general election. But at his trial in May 1987, Proctor pleaded guilty to 4 acts of gross indecency with a 17-year-old boy and a 19-year-old man, and was fined a total of 1,450 quid. Can you see the similarities to what's going on? And this guy's coming out of the woodwork saying, leave him alone. Harvey, mate. So, first time, because I thought he was stalking me at the time. I'm using the term loosely, of course, not in the sort of 2023 sense. So, I'm kind of with a girl living in Richmond, in Surrey. And she says, I've got to go do something, got to do some shopping. So I said, all right then. And we go into this shop down a lane in Richmond, in Surrey. Richmond's quite affluent. So we walk down this lane and we go into this shop. She wanted something altered. And literally, like Mr. Ben in the cartoon series, Harvey Proctor appears from behind the curtain. And I'm like, I'm trying to get my girlfriend's attention, going, holy shit, that's Harvey Proctor. Do you know who Harvey Proctor is? And she's like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? What? Just leave me alone. I'll get this sorted. And I'm like, it's Harvey Proctor. So we walk out the shop and she's going, what is wrong with you? What's going on? What was going on in there? I said, don't you know who that bloke was? She said, no, why would I? He owns a shop. I said, that's Harvey Proctor. So I told her what Harvey Proctor got up to. Now, I've got to be careful. In my head, I'm remembering some stuff, but, it's a little dangerous in 2023. So anyway, That's fine. Yeah, Richmond posh people, and Mick Jagger lives up on the hill. So a little while longer, maybe a year or two later, I'm visiting a place called Belvoir Castle. It's actually pronounced Beaver. Belvoir Castle in the East Midlands, and I'm going there with a friend of mine, Beryl, and we get to the gatehouse, and the Harvey Proctor incident has been all forgotten about because it's a couple of years. So I literally walk into this gatehouse at Beaver Castle, and who's standing there taking the money and issuing the tickets? Harvey Proctor. And I don't know whether you remember this, because I said to him, "Bugger me, Harvey, are you stalking me?" And he kind of looked at me shocked. And I said, "Oh, no, don't matter. Anyway, can I have 2 tickets, please?" So he's come out, so obviously I'm going to recognise him. He's come out and said, I think he's kind of like some personal assistant to some duke or count or something or other. Well, the bloke that owns Beaver Castle, Belvoir. It looks like, Belvoir Castle. Not that posh, Beaver. See, I love Beaver Castle. So I also want to ask a question. The BBC, I'm trying to work this out. So the BBC News independently reported on the BBC. How does that work? Do they have like a special department? Because it's just BBC News. Independently reporting on the BBC. How on earth does that work in a month of Sundays? So what I also want to get to, because we're fairly going to have to lick through this, pun intended, is Dame Janet Smith. Now, I don't know whether you're aware, but no one's quite putting this jigsaw together. And the reason why I wanted to walk you through this is because you get a greater understanding, so that whatever you're presented with from the mainstream news media, you'll know whether I've been telling the truth or whether it's being managed. As I say, I'm a cynical old tart. When press releases are released at 3 minutes to 6, I know there's a rabbit away. I know it, and I prefer them in a pot. So it's very difficult to put the jigsaw together. And what is being lost in all of this? And you'll get it across the BBC. They'll now go, "Oh, poor Huw." Is it John Simpson or somebody, one of the other presenters? He's come out and gone, "Oh, poor Huw." Mate, what about the victims? He's not the victim. He might have issues that he's having to deal with personally and will deal with his wife and children, because I'm not sure how long that's going to last. I mean, if you're a woman and your husband was off dancing with other blokes, and then you find out from the Sun and the media, what would you do to your marriage? Would you go, "Oh, I love him, I'll stay with him"? Paul James said, "I watched the Sky News and I thought they were going to give Huw Edwards an award." Maybe they were, because maybe they're all at it. Maybe there's no straight up and down, pun intended. There's no straight up and down with these people. There's no integrity with journalists. None. Journalists wouldn't pee on them if they were on fire. I've worked with them, loads of them. There are some good people, evidently, because, I've got friends in the media, in print journalism and in radio and telly. No, a lot of different people in a lot of different walks of life. And there are some great people, but what I want to do is I want to draw your attention to something, and it's this. Huw Edwards is a god botherer. Huw Edwards is a regular attendee at his local church. We're talking weekly. Now, maybe they're going to beatify Huw Edwards, but I tell you this, he sits in a church every week, getting closer to God, and then he's off offering 5 grand, 200, any amount. It was 200, 250 and 200 he gave this other victim. I mean, don't get me started on the Catholic Church. But, God bother her. Churchgoer every week. And this is what he's been up to. Mental health don't cover that. Don't cover that. I mean, they do say that God knows everything, whoever God is. I mean, I don't subscribe to organised thinking. I don't subscribe to, an old bloke with a grey beard, wearing white, living in the clouds. Please. So, the BBC, the beatification of Huw Edwards, the BBC, Katie Razzle, great magazine. She said, this is a man who embodies BBC values. So did Jimmy Savile, seemingly, and Rolf Harris, and Stuart Hall. So Katie Razzle, the BBC's culture editor. Oh, by the way, what happened to that, what's her name? Is it not Springer? Spring? The girl that was like the fact checker, the BBC's fact checker. Remember her a couple of months ago going, oh, yes, I'm going to check all the facts, make sure they're... So come on then, where was she? Probably on holiday. Deniability. So, the BBC's got a fact checker who couldn't check the facts. I mean, you can't make Mariana Spring, thank you, Alex in Stockton. You can't make this stuff up, can you? Yeah, we've employed a fact checker. So where was she during the Huw Edwards debacle? On her holiday. That works then. So Katie Razzle, the BBC's culture editor, said the naming of Huw Edwards is a huge shock to viewers. Was it to you? No, I'm going to ask you a straight question. Was it a shock to you? We all knew for days. I mean, they're treating us as if we're thick. We all knew who it was. I told you who it was on Sunday. Well, I told you I knew who it was on Sunday. It's not a shock. There were others that would have been a bigger shock. I mean, I remember telling... no, I won't do that story. I'll probably get me into trouble. But Katie goes on and says, as well as a big shock to all of us at BBC News, notice how they're distancing themselves from, pervert works for the BBC. Shock, horror. Not at first. This is such dramatic news. This is a man who has embodied BBC values. He's breaking lockdown rules and he's off round to people's flats. They're not telling us what they did. Cup of tea and a couple of buns. They're not telling us. There's somebody that has a crack cocaine drug habit because of the money he gave them. Is that embodying BBC values? These people are clowns. They have no idea about what real life is all about. And she says, this is such dramatic news. This is a man who has embodied BBC values, has been the face of the BBC, has held the viewers' hands through so many of the momentous parts of our nation's history, whether it's elections, royal events, the Queen's death, or the Queen's coronation, says Razzle. Well, bang goes the coverage of all of that, because you know what they've done with Top of the Pops? I mean, I love Top of the Pops. Do you? I love Top of the Pops. I love all that. Anyway, it's our nation's musical history. They've had to kill some of it because Savile's all over it. He was touching up girls. Savile at Top of the Pops. So they had to ditch a whole chunk of Top of the Pops. So now, Queen's funeral, King's coronation, all that, they're not going to be able to show him on telly again. Do you not agree? Put it in the comments. I think he's done. Oh, Scouse Mouse, looking to Eric Gill. Yes, I'm going to do a video over the next couple of days when I get a chance about Eric Gill and a surprise. Tell you more about that over the next couple of days. So Razzle said that at the time the statement came from Huw Edwards' wife naming him, BBC News could at that point say it knew the identity of the presenter but had not been able to name him for legal reasons. Now we are able to. Oh, we can heave a sigh of relief. Thank you, Katie. Now, here's the thing. The BBC were coming out saying, we don't know who the victim is. We don't know. We don't. I don't contact. And I've said this before. Just ask Huw for his mobile telephone because Huw had it, seemingly. He was texting them last week. And the BBC are saying, no, we can't, no. Oh, but when somebody came to you and said, I've been getting these aggressive messages from one of your reporters, one of your stars on the telly. They said, give us a look at the number. And they corroborated it because they've got a central database of all their guests, all their contacts, people that work there. And they just checked it against their database, and it's like, oh my word, it's Huw Edwards. Honestly, don't trust these people as far as you can spit them. The Director General has come out and said, oh, there's strong trust with the BBC. No, mate, I think you'll find there's not. I think we've seen through you. We've had enough. 3 years you were the government's mouthpiece telling us, don't leave your house, don't leave your house, don't leave your house. And on a Thursday night, 7 o'clock, for the NHS. Whilst one of your stars was mooching around with other people, breaking the rules. Now, if this had been a politician, they would have gone. I mean, if it was Bojo, he's gone. But Huw Edwards now playing the mental health card? Look, if he's got his issues, let him deal with them. But when he's well enough, he needs to face the music. This is the man who embodied BBC values, my hairy backside. So let me give you BBC values. Because what they're not telling you, they've all missed. All of them. All of the BBC. All of the mainstream media. All of them. Can you remember when Savile died? Can you remember when all of a sudden all of his victims felt strong enough and courageous enough to come out and talk about it? Can you imagine what that took? A lot of them had died. But it was only when Savile died that they were able, or they felt strong enough to be able to tell their story. Imagine what that took. Now, in 2012, Dame Janet Smith started her review report inquiry. And I'm going to give you some of the questions they asked about Savile. And stay with me, because this applies to Huw Edwards. And this applies, moreover, to the BBC. So Dame Janet Smith, in her review report, addressed the following questions. Did Savile commit acts of inappropriate sexual conduct in connection with his work for the BBC? Were any concerns raised within the BBC, whether formally or informally, about Savile's inappropriate sexual conduct? To what extent were BBC personnel aware of inappropriate sexual conduct by Savile in connection with his work for the BBC? Did the culture and practices within the BBC during the years of Savile's employment enable Savile's inappropriate sexual conduct to continue unchecked? And then Dame Janet provided a number of recommendations for reform of the BBC's internal processes based on her investigation. Before I get to those, I want to remind you that at the beginning, the parents, the mum and the stepdad, went to the police. We need help. And the police couldn't give it because it wasn't illegal. That was in April, and then May 18th, the stepdad walks into the BBC's building. One of them. None. Nix. Nada. Nout. Then they call the BBC the following day. So the recommendations I'll get to in a second. But this is so seedy and grubby. The findings of this review report by Dame Janet Smith, which totaled over 700 pages, found Savile had sexually abused 72 people and had raped 8 people, including an 8-year-old. And I'm going to quote this from Dame Janet Smith's report. At virtually every one of the BBC premises at which he worked. Now, I'll run that by you again. Because everybody, at the time when this report came out in February 2016, the only thing that happened was Tony Blackburn was sacked. A national treasure. Tony Blackburn, sacked. Nothing was done about Savile. Nothing. And then we get to Huw Edwards. So I'll repeat this. Savile sexually abused 72 people and raped 8 people, including an 8-year-old, at virtually every one of the BBC premises at which he worked. I met Savile twice at a radio station that I was working at. Evil, 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 evil. So Dame Janet stated that some BBC staff members were aware of complaints against Savile, but did not pass the information to senior management due to the culture of not complaining. Is that culture still in place? Yeah, I was aware of Fluff. There is just as a little aside, there is a tape going around, and it's been going around for, 40 years now, of 2 friends. I'm not going to name them, but they did this skit, and it was Alan Fluff Freeman and Jimmy Savile. So one impersonated Fluff and one impersonated Savile. I don't really want to go into the detail, but I will tell you this. Yes, it was funny, but Savile got wind of it. Savile heard about it, and he threatened to break their legs. If he could find out who they were, he said, I'll break their legs. Well, with expletives. I'm going to break the legs. Fluff like little boys. Savile, anything, even dead people. Dame Janet described an atmosphere of fear still existing in the BBC, and I still think it exists to this day. A separate review, so remember that 72 people that Savile sexually abused and 8 rapes, including an 8-year-old. Can remember Stuart Hall? It's a knockout. Stuart Hall! He assaulted 21 female victims at the BBC, the youngest of whom was aged 10. Nonces are us. Between 1967 and 1991, the report found that some BBC staff members were aware he was bringing underage girls into his dressing room for sex, but his untouchable celebrity status stopped them from passing complaints to senior management. Huw Edwards. Who in the BBC knew about Huw Edwards? Who in the BBC knew what he was up to? Who in the BBC? How far up the food chain did it go? So I'm going to give you Dame Janet Smith's recommendations before I go to some of your comments. And there's been some fantastic comments on the live tonight. Thank you for all of those. Now, Dame Janet Smith recognised there was some difficulties and challenges within the BBC at this point in 2016. She held her inquiry between October 2012 and February 2016. She said the BBC was far from the only place where such problems occurred. However, as she said earlier in her report, there were issues on which she does criticise the BBC. Had these failures been addressed at the time, it is possible that, at best, Savile would not have behaved as he did, or, at least, his activities would have been curtailed. In this part of Dame Janet's report, she didn't need to do more than list these factors, although she wanted to, in each case, identify where the issue is dealt with in more detail. So the report is 700 pages, and I'm not going to read all that out to you, but I will tell you that Dame Janet stated the lack of an effective complaints process within the BBC. She identified the lack of an effective complaints process in the BBC. Now, this was issued in 2016 when they fired Tony Blackburn and did nothing about the recommendations in Dame Janet Smith's review report. Doesn't seem to be, if we can look at what happened to the parents when they went to the BBC. Batted off. Hot potato, gone! Not on my desk. Not in my backyard, NIMBY. She said that there needed to be stronger lateral relationships within the BBC. There needed to be cohesion. There needed to be communication between departments. So, seemingly, they get a report, a really worrying report. They deemed it credible, and they deemed it sufficiently warranted attention. But where did it go? I get there's 20-odd thousand people who work in the BBC, so it's quite a big organisation. Dame Janet said there was a need for stronger lateral relationships across the BBC, encouraging to share information. It goes all the way up the food chain because the son knocks on the door. Can you imagine the consternation, the frustration by the mum and the stepdad trying to get help and support, trying to get somebody to stop their star news reporter, their news presenter, to stop sending money? 35 large ones. Wow. And vitally important, Dame Janet Smith identified the lack of effective investigations. This is 2016. It's only 7 years ago. These were her recommendations to the BBC. Now, you tell me, do you think that they've adhered to them? Do you think they've taken them on board? My hairy backside. The need for an effective human resources department providing proper support to employees as well as the employer. I don't think they've got an effective investigations team. It's either not big enough or they're overworked. They need stronger interdepartmental relationships. And all these recommendations, it appears, from Janet Smith's review report, they've not taken on board. Not on a month of Sundays. So thank you to everyone that's commented. I'm going to read some of them out and respond to them. As I say, some of these were going to be used tonight before Huw Edwards was identified and his wife released those press releases. And thank you to everyone that's been on the live so far tonight. I might run over a little, so we won't stop at an hour. We might keep going for a little while longer. And if you can, just hit the like. It would help the channel amazingly. Thank you very much. Emmy Lombard said, Adrian, I've seen the pics of the news presenter of the BBC sending to one of his victims. Everybody knows who it is. And another 3 victims have come forward as well. So there's now 4 victims, Amy says. Why aren't they releasing his name that the world knows? And the BBC should put this victim in a dual diagnosis of rehab. That's the least they can do. I agree that I do hope he's getting the help that he needs. I hope it's not just it's not our responsibility. The BBC should be supporting him. That's interesting. English bottle cap. Did the parents not contact their MP after they were advised by the police that there was no crime? That'll be interesting if that comes out, although the Sun has come out this evening saying it's not going to publish what it was going to publish tomorrow. Kieran Smith, they should make a film about it. I nominate Michael Sheen to play him. I'm fluent. Pat Catlab, thanks for proving the rumours. At last, the truth is out, Adrian. I feel sad for his family, as they are always the last to know. As I found out on Facebook, my husband had another woman for 4 years. Photos don't lie. I don't know how he got away with it, though. I mean, one of the victims was saying, I'm going to expose you. Well, not expose. He didn't use that word. I'm going to let people know who you are and what you're doing. And then he got abusive messages. Stephen Hosmer, hopefully, Stephen, I've pronounced that right. Just wild out there thought, Adrian. So he did the Queen's funeral for the Beeb, along with God knows how many other notable events. So how will the Beeb handle, basically, historic events? The historic events that he did the commentary on. I mentioned it earlier, Stephen. Thank you very much. I mean, they're going to have to do some editing. I mean, AI may be able to help them, but can you imagine? They're not going to ditch that. They're not going to get rid of that. They can't. It's historical. Queen Elizabeth the Great. Can't lose that. But I doubt people will watch it. I doubt people will watch anything that he does now. Oh, shame about Wingard. Great actor. Has Peter Wingard died today? Oh, what? Just as a little aside, what a great TV series, Department S. Going left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Department S. And what did he do? Peter Wingard was the star. Didn't he wear his shirt cuffs outside of his jacket? I mean, it was the 70s. What size of his moustache as well. Pyewacket Trixie Bell. It's time they named him. Thankfully, Pyewacket, they have done tonight. Rights aren't wrong. It's a crime to possess sexual images of anyone under the age of 18 in the UK. So all these people saying no crime was committed are just ignorant to the actual law. Yes, it's weird that a 17-year-old can have sex but can't send nudes, but that is the law until the day the law changes. You can't have an OnlyFans account until the age of 18 for this very legal reason. Thank you, rights aren't wrong. DD. Oh, I mentioned this earlier. A statement should be made by the BBC's disinformation and social media correspondent, Mariana Spring. I'm looking forward to that. Can you imagine? Lying on the beach being told, holy, get back home, quick. Police said no case. Thank you, Alan. Amalia Grassi, seeing this a bit late, but his name is already over social media. I mean, there's that photo circulating and you can clearly see who it is too. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't know who it is at this point, so I don't care who covers it first. The cat is out of the bag. Now, I know that a website published it, and it's on one of the videos, and the link is in the description of the video down from this one, I think. Not a live, an actual video, vlog. And it was based in Miami, Florida. So that's how they could publish it in America. But I believe that there's English connections there. So he didn't really have anywhere to go. That was published online. What else was he going to do? And then the Sun was possibly going to publish something tomorrow. He had nowhere to go. But I think this was all stage managed. All of it. It's 2023. Phil Sutty, the BBC has been a law to itself for years, but in this day and age, they can't get away with what they used to, i.e. sweeping things under the carpet. Get rid of this antiquated company, for heaven's sake. Thank you, Phil. Louise Anderson says, we know, they know, we know. We know, they know, we know. They know, we know, they know, we know. Brilliant, Louise. Brilliant. In essence, BBC's bottom was putting like a rabbit's nose. John Pacey. Thanks, Adrian. I wondered what all those lumps under the carpet were. John, you're wrong. Bryn Jones. Great content, Adrian. Put off a little bit by you've only shaved half your top lip. It was the lighting guy. Can't get the staff. Cheers, Bryn. Tushley and Bob Size. MMM, presenter X, should out himself. He didn't. He didn't have the integrity. It was his wife. A good woman that went, stop, enough. I'm going to take care of this. I'm taking you to hospital. We're going to get you sorted, and please respect the privacy of the family. He didn't at all. Anna Power. Guess who's paying? Yeah, guess who? So, who's paying for the lawyers for the victim? Remember the first victim? It's rubbish. But corroborated by another victim for the parents. Was it the BBC or the agent? Very insightful, Anna. Thank you. Brian Ford, no one is above the law, apparently. Well, we shall see. Thank you, Brian. Edward Donachie, if the said presenter was wrongly accused, he'd have spoken out by now, in my opinion. Whatever the facts, he's misbehaved and will now be trying to keep his wife and children on side while his lawyers take care of the scandal. Unfortunately for him, his career is over. Thank you, Edward. Julie Ford speaks and dresses well. Someone that looks safe and of good character. Not sure how to explain that. Never judge a book. And what does a serial killer look like comes to mind. Because both perceptions we have can be miles apart. I agree, Julie. That's why I said he's a god botherer. It's just a term. Because look, if you have faith and you believe that by calling someone a god botherer, I'm disrespecting God, let him strike me down. Let him strike me down. I'll happily take a plague of locusts. I'll happily take a bolt of lightning. Mind you, if it starts thunder and lightning any time in the next half hour. The German. Squeaky bum time. Mark Elwood, the Sun should have named him in the original article, and then the BBC should have apologised and held a press conference with the accused presenter. An apology is not an admission of guilt, but a recognition it is serious and of public interest. PD Tech. Maybe if the presenter had nothing to hide, he should do the right thing and come forward and explain his side of the story. His silence and the seemingly cover-up tactics of the BBC speaks volumes, in my honest opinion, says PD Tech. Matty PW. Adrian, it's only right that he should give his side of the story to clear his name or not. But unless he does, oddly or not, I'm not sure trial by media is helpful. Plus, watch the start of Monday's Newsnight when Victoria Derbyshire let his name slip. Saw it. See, there were people in the BBC that weren't happy with him at all. Because the BBC, as Jeremy Vine quite rightly pointed out, the BBC's on its knees. On its knees. And I'm not sure it's going to recover from this. I just know that if the Director General was being attacked and possibly had to stand down, Edwards would have been sacked. Get rid of him. Irene Wielden, this young person involved in all this has, through a solicitor, denied any wrongdoings by the celebrity involved and said story was rubbish. Considering, as the mother claims, that her child has been using money given to the child for recreational, the child is most likely to rubbish the story because it will stop the cash flow coming in. I may be wrong. No, I think you're about there, Irene. I mean, Huw Edwards' wife now will make sure that all the fivers have gone out of his pockets and he's not going to be shuffling money around and giving it to varying people. I mean, why was he giving the money? Why? Was he just feeling sorry for them? Did he have a good heart? Or was he being blackmailed? Or was it a honey trap? Give me 250 quid and I'll keep my cop shut. Call me a cynical old tart if you wish. Paulie Galtieri, good to see you, Paulie. He's been named already. It's all over social media and in the public domain. I know. Anything done now is fruitless and a futile attempt by the BBC to save face. Cheers, Paulie. Brian Clark, I don't know why the parents of this young person did not contact the police in the first place. They did, Brian. In April. They went to the police in April. Stephen Brown, when did the mother discover what was going on? If it's been happening for 3 years, if the BBC or the police were carrying out an investigation, it seems unwise for the now suspended suspect to make contact with the supposed victim. And seemingly, according to The Sun, he did. Twice. King Kong says, it's okay for the BBC to accuse innocent people like Andrew Tate, but when it's one of them, wow. And look at, they made hay while the sun shines when Scove was outed playtime Thursdays. Is his flat still for sale? Video coming. Thank you, King Kong. But yeah, I agree. Tony Trouble, are there not enough sheep in Wales? Tony, you're wrong. Angela Wainman. Actually, I did a phone-in on Real Radio in South Wales asking if the Welsh were inbred. And the Welsh loved it. Loved it. They all came on and said, oh, yeah, my sister's had 3 kids to me dad's brother. Something like that. It's a great phone-in. I think I've got it in my archive somewhere. Maybe I don't know whether I can put that online in 2023 because somebody will go, oh, I say. Yeah. I can't use the D word, Scouse Mouse, but yeah, I'll try and get around the algorithm. Angela, who's paying the lawyer? Could it be the BBC? Question being asked multiple times. Paul Durkee, who's paying for the victim's lawyer? We should be asking, and why? I love the fact that there's loads of cynical old tarts joining with me and asking the same questions. They're legitimate journalistic questions. Robbie the Robot, crime or no crime, the guy has lost his job and his reputation. I believe so. Noel Fleming. I am not reading that out, you're wrong. If you see Noel Fleming's comment, that can get me into a whole load of trouble. It's not far removed from the truth, though, considering what Huw Edwards has been up to. Alex in Stockton, storming a B Cup. It's a diversion tactic whilst other shenanigans are put in place or prepared for behind the public's back. What, like Bojo's phone and George Osborne's email? Do your research. LUFC 123, I feel for people that genuinely suffer mental health issues. However, I don't like it when people use it as an excuse to gain sympathy. I think LUFC 123 seen right through this this subject. They all knew Adrian, YouTube is flooded with the same channels who are reporting the same thing. I've just counted 24 channels with the same old news. We already knew who he was days ago. I know, but nobody could publish. Nobody could. Because, I mean, everybody was bricking it because of the privacy laws. Who was it said this? Peter Atherton said, Adrian, police action was rapid fast. Comparatively, I'm sure. Daryl Ashton, my name is Huw Edwards and I'm playing the mental health card. No one can expose me, not even New Scotland Yard. Hang on, does that rhyme? My name is Huw Edwards and I'm playing the mental health card. No one can expose me, not even New Scotland Yard. Blimey, Daryl, I think that rhymed. Catherine Clark, come into the country illegally, behave like him, use mental health as an excuse, you get away with anything, but protest peacefully and you get arrested. Disgusting that he would use that when there's genuine people out there who wouldn't do that. Thank you, Catherine. I mean, look at George Osborne's wedding. How to get it on the front page of every single newspaper the day after. Get some old bird to chuck some orange confetti at you saying, Just Stop Oil. And then Just Stop Oil came out and said, she's not one of us. I mean, I have seen subsequent saying, oh, we had a secret agent sneak in. Comfortable shoes, definitely. Dippy Doo, I feel sorry for Huw and his family. Depression can affect our decisions. Understandably. Think people should stop subscribing the Sun newspaper as they have destroyed this man and it's a high cost at times, being in the public eye. Yeah, but £500,000 a year to the BBC. That's how much they've got to cough for him. Says there is more to come on this matter. What is going on in the media with these witch hunts, I ask? Dippy Doo, you are most welcome to your opinion. I don't think this was a witch hunt. I think this was a deviant, pervert, married man, God botherer that was going around doing whatever he wanted and possibly thought he was never going to get caught. There's more to come out about this. I don't believe that 4 victims is it. I believe that there are some practices that he was involved in. A married man, 5 kids, churchgoer every week. He can't go back to church. God will strike him down, let alone the public. Happy Weekend says, no depressed human being would ask a minor for nudes. Depression doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. That's very dry, Happy Weekend. Very good. This is why I don't trust any BBC employees or ex-employees. They're all nonsense and stalkers. I can't understand why these men would do such sick acts. I had to check that. I thought you were saying something else there for a second. The sad truth is doctors and nurses can't say anything. They are probably thinking Huw is lying out of his derriere about his mental health as an escape route. I met and heard loads of people using the sanity card to get off scot-free from prison. Thank you, Happy Weekend. I just hope that he gets the right treatment, the right support. The BBC supports him in his struggles. And yes, he does come out and tell us what's gone on. Because there's no integrity there. There's no trust. He can't read the news anymore. He can't go on TV anymore. Because the trust has gone. We've had these victims. The mum and the stepdad were at their wits' end trying to get someone to just pay attention. Did they have Boober at the BBC, Tina? Nice. Didn't when I was there. Yeah, what was the... Frida Clark, thank you, Frida. Suffering from depression and mental problems at over 400 grand a year. Living on a state pension. He would have mental health issues. That's why I said earlier, Frida. You know, our old uns and our little uns have had it real tight and tough over the last couple of years. Yet no one seems to care about them. No one cares. Yet a newsreader starts doing nefarious stuff with people he shouldn't be. He's married. He's married. What the hell was he doing? No, I'm not going to say that. That is enough. Till death do us part. For richer or for poorer. For better or for worse. Unless I'm off seeing a young guy. Suki Duke. Yes, I did know that photo on Twitter, but I'm bloody livid, and this could be less so if the BBC was quick and the new privacy laws need to go. Because of those laws, we weren't allowed to name Huw Edwards. Others did, and especially outside the UK. So privacy laws are flawed. And Jeremy Vine and Nicky Campbell, they had to call out. They were called out as suspect because they refused to name him. Well, they were stuck. They had to defend their good name. And they had a torrid time. All the, Paddy McGuinness, Jeremy, who else was, Nicky Campbell, who else came out? Gary Lineker, onto the media and said, it wasn't me. I mean, imagine having to do that, justify your existence, because people on social media were just, I mean, I do hope they sue, because you just can't say stuff, some of the stuff that I saw, you can't say. And there's a very well-known YouTuber with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, put a video up there naming someone. And I looked at it and thought, what are you doing? You're better than that. And Ryland Clark too, English bottle cap, thank you. Well, and Graham Norton. I mean, these people have got good reputations, have worked tirelessly, and yet this very well-known YouTuber was, I thought she was on very dangerous ground. Very dangerous. But she took the video down straight away, unless somebody's got a copy of it or a screen grab. No such thing as deleted on the internet. A few more comments and then we'll sort of round things off, because I'll eat some food. Sorry. Comic Mania, getting rather sick of trial by public opinion in this country, indicatively on white over 50-year-old males. People are really twisting the knife on this individual. They should be ashamed of themselves. And Lee Wilcox, Aquariums, 3 Cats, said, he pulled a Schofield, gay bloke, married with kids, who like young lads. Put that in the dictionary. I mean, I'm sure Philip Schofield's breathing a sigh of relief this past 7 days. He's not getting the heat until the weekend. BG Anonymous. So he didn't commit a crime, but the guy is basically a nasty piece of work who should lose his job for abusing his status at the very least. Abusing power and money. If these allegations are true, you can be sure that he won't be walking the streets after dark. Not that I'm condoning violence. No, you shouldn't, BG Anonymous. But I think best thing he can do, just retire now. He's got millions in the bank, surely. Unless he's paid it out to a load of young guys. And just retire. Just enjoy it. Retire. In the game of life, lots of cards can be played. The gay ones, coloured ones, A, B, C, D, syndrome and mental health. I do hope he gets the appropriate support and treatment. And then tells us what the hell's gone on. Brett Wilson, I wonder if he will get debanked. Good point. Is Nigel Farage still debanked? Bri Boy, I find this to be very sad indeed, that such a man like Huw Edwards is involved in this matter. He was such a venerable man in every way, and I just cannot believe all this has happened. He was one of the BBC's news anchors that I looked up to very much. Some of the victims said that they looked up to him. Tony Trott, the tea leaves predict a divorce for him in the near future and the loss of lots of money. Thank you, Tony. Stephen Hayes, no criminal offence result after no investigation. What a surprise. He is still being protected by people. The police have not arrested anyone, interviewed anyone, or searched any premises. If they had, they might have found evidence of wrongdoing. I'm sure the Sun were camped out at his address to report any search warrants being executed. That would have been interesting, Steve, if they were. We haven't heard the end of this drama yet. I wonder how many more victims will come forward now he is named. It will be interesting to see how things go over the next couple of days. Will he be left alone completely? He's in hospital indefinitely. Norman Taylor says, Adrian, Huw Edwards gave an interview to Hello magazine in 2019 about how he lost 3 stone in weight and was sending the ladies wild with his new look, apparently, by boxing about 3 times a week. He also mentioned he gets bouts of severe depression in the same interview. So the fact he's in hospital now after all of this is probably accurate, whether self-inflicted or not. See you at 8 p.m. Thank you, Norman. Leslie Kime, possibly. Sorry, Leslie, if I'm mispronouncing your name. Drop in from the news and give him a new show called Huw Will Fix It. Huw will fix it for Huw and Huw and Huw. Keith Levers. Huw knew Jimmy and crew, Glitter, Scove, Harris, You'll See, another BBC classic. Half the country's on antidepressants that don't make it right either. Damage limitations. There's no plea bargain in heaven. And Jeffrey Powell, the rotten BBC. Disgusting treatment of the licence payer. And also, I bet there are others at the BBC that are shaking in their shoes. It was a cover-up, and he can escape by booking himself into a private hospital because he receives via the licence payer over £400,000 a year. Disgusting perv. Save our children. The chairman of the BBC should resign. Let's see what transpires over the next few days. I mean, The Sun have come out tonight, about an hour ago, and said, we're not going to publish anything tomorrow. They may save it for Sunday, because it's business. For the print media, it's business. Tina Silver, bye-bye, good show, thank you. Let me wrap up, Tina. So it's business. It's print business. And The Sun is in the business of printing stories that you will buy, so you will buy their newspaper. 90p a day. 90p a day. When I started, it was like 10 pence or something. But 90p a day. But the big one is the Sunday. Sundays quits. So will they save it for Sunday? Will they leave it alone? Can they actually publish what they have? Are the mum and the stepdad going to be given the support and guidance around recreational D with their child? Will the child get support? Will the other 3 victims be given any support? Will the BBC reach out to the 4 victims and give them support and guidance and help? And all those other people that may have been victims of this one guy, Huw Edwards, who appears to be a one-man wrecking ball. Are the BBC going to support them? Where will they get their support from? The mum and the stepdad went to the police in April. Then they went to the BBC in May. Nothing. Nix, nada, nout. No support. They're tearing their hair out. They're trying to deal with their child and their drug habit. Crack cocaine. Didn't get anything. Didn't get anybody's attention. That's not illegal. As in what Huw Edwards was doing. Seemingly. And then the Sun knocks on the BBC's door. Poof! The balloon goes up and everybody knows about it. The BBC's quaking in their boots and the Director General has to go on his own Radio 4 show and justify everything. Wow. Honestly. They think we're idiots. We can see through clowns in Clown World. So we know that they've got, it's a good day for burying bad news for the last 5 days. That's what they'll have been doing, shoveling it by the boatload. But we're not daft. All day. We see through them. I wish Karen Perkins, thank you, Karen. Peter Wingard died 2018. I'm slow, Karen. Thank you for that. I appreciate you staying with this particular live. It was a Huw Edwards special, so to speak. I hope that all of his victims are given support and guidance. The families of those victims are given support and guidance. I hope that Huw, with his wife and his children, is given appropriate and proportionate support and help with his mental health issues. And then, when he's well enough, face the music. All of it. Not, are you okay? My name's Adrian Allen. If you could hit the likes, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your subscriptions. Please share any of my videos so that people get to know more about the channel and what we do and my background in the media for the last 45 years. Thank you for your likes, your subscriptions, but most of all, your indulgence. My name's Adrian Allen. Thank you for this evening's live. The next live is this coming Sunday at 8 o'clock. And I'll see you then.